Shibuya-ko lived as a sharp MPD detective chasing fraud, bribes, and his next promotion. Mitsukoshi warned him that their section chief wanted the bribery investigation buried immediately. Behind Ku's smile, justice was only a mask. One big arrest could secure his promotion. An insider tip led them to an unfinished building where cash would supposedly change hands. Fifth floor silence felt wrong the moment bare concrete and empty window frames appeared. 3 violent men emerged from the corner, and Mitsukoshi quietly stepped away. Mitsukoshi's betrayal struck harder than the ambush because Ko finally understood the trap. Cornered against glassless windows, Ku fought back with the little martial training he had. Drunk driving leverage had turned Mitsukoshi into bait and Ko into a disposable witness. One brutal counter dropped the first attacker, but another fist crushed Ku's stomach. Then rough hands shoved him through the open frame, and the city vanished above him. Falling through darkness, Ko wondered what mistake had doomed him before everything disappeared. Far beyond Earth, a feverish child woke screaming with a murdered detective's memories. Yin rushed closer, calling him Ko, and the unfamiliar language somehow made perfect sense. 3 days of fever had merged 2 lives inside one 9-year-old boy named Ko. The next morning, Ko returned to chores, trapped in a child's ordinary frontier life. Densai returned, pleased that Ko's future servant placement would not be wasted. A merchant house waited in Bushin, and Ko's father saw it as a family ladder. Ko needed answers, so he asked to meet the temple's most knowledgeable priest. The old priest sat straight despite his thin body and began explaining the kingdom. Then came impossible words. Beyond kings stood Taoists seeking immortality and eternal life. Ku finally understood this was not Earth, and immortality here was terrifyingly real. Suspicion touched Ko's face, and the priest quietly admitted he had once met a Taoist. The priest described a man riding a cloud, and Ko's disbelief turned into hunger. 1 in 10,000 had the talent, but Ku already wanted that impossible path. Departure morning arrived, with Yin crying, while Ko's father only told him to endure. 3 months passed as Ko absorbed history, geography, and a world shaped like old China. Lu's wagon carried 5 children toward Bushin, the so-called merchant capital. The road punished them with awful meals, wooden jolts, and 7 days of exhaustion. At noon suddenly, Lu stopped the horses, and fear cracked through his voice. 8 bandits blocked the road ahead, and more shadows closed in from behind. Children began crying, but Ko understood faster than anyone that hesitation meant death. Ko shouted once for everyone to run, then jumped from the wagon alone. The bandits yelled as Ko vanished into dense, thin trees beside the highway. Small body weaving through narrow trunks, Ko survived because adults could not follow cleanly. When footsteps faded, Ko hid his trail, breathing hard beneath the trees. Detective memories whispered responsibility, but Ko forced himself to keep living first. Guilt hit afterward, because the other children had probably frozen inside the wagon. 30 minutes later, Ko found the highway and chose the town over the massacre. Then bloodied men approached from behind, carrying Lu's bag like proof of slaughter. Against all reason, Ko tailed the bandits, chasing the direction of their hidden den. A towering tree marked their turn into the forest, but Ko stopped before greed killed him. Ko reached Korda, alone, dirty, and carrying information no child should have. Lian noticed him at the gate and immediately sensed something was wrong. Ku reported calmly that bandits had attacked his wagon, and Lian believed enough to act. Han saw it clearly. No normal child escaped tailed bandits and mapped a hideout. Inside the barracks, Ko repeated everything before Captain Han and waited in silence. Before questioning Ko, Han marched out with guards to confirm what waited on the road. Han rode west with his guards, chasing the truth Ko had carried into Korta. 2 hours later, they found the wagon, and Lian's face hardened at the sight. The body count matched Ko's words, proving the child had told everything exactly. Han chose restraint, first bring them home, then gather men and erase the bandits. Back in Korda, Ko slept sitting upright, exhaustion finally overpowering his borrowed courage. Night had fallen when hunger woke him and pulled him into the guard dining hall. Cold steamed buns became his dinner while he waited for the captain's return. Han returned late and confirmed the truth. everyone left in the wagon was dead. Cold grief filled Ko's chest, but old detective memories helped him recover fast. Ko asked directly whether the guards would exterminate the bandits who slaughtered them. Han told Ko to stay in Korta until the extermination was finished and rewarded. That midnight restlessness dragged Ko outside, where one far room still leaked light. Inside that room, Captain Han trained alone, moving through cramped martial forms. Caught instantly there. Ko stepped inside and learned Han was studying martial arts. A thin manual held the lost secret of Korta's guard captains, broken without oral teachings. Because the teachings were lost, Han's frustration made him careless enough to toss it over. Ko flipped pages and instantly photographed every symbol inside with his impossible memory. He returned it before Han realized that a child had stolen the whole book with his eyes. By daylight, Ko replayed the manual in his mind, but strange script blocked the secrets. Maizen's swordsmanship remained possible, so Ko decided to train before death found him again. 2 days later, the guards wiped out the bandits and recovered the stolen goods. Because Ko reported the hideout's direction, the magistrate awarded him 20 silver coins. For a child, that money was enormous, so a guard warned him about pickpockets. Ko left Korta and bought passage on a stagecoach heading for Bushin. This time, nothing happened, and Ko finally reached the merchant capital safely. Bushin's streets towered around him, filled with merchants, carts, and wealthy houses. At Qian Trading, Ko was brought before Xiao, the massive head of the house. Xiao heard disaster had killed Lu, then decided Ko was lucky enough for service. Ko was assigned to Yulong, the beautiful second son of the Qian family. After martial training, Yulong tossed Ko the key and ordered fresh clothes brought. Every morning, Ko prepared water, cleaned rooms, and learned how demanding Yulong was. Yulong gave orders, like a spoiled master, sending Ko to pull weeds again. Yulong chased immortality, training desperately because Sect entrance required third-tier chi refining. Before sunrise, Ko trained mason swordsmanship with a stick, while the estate still slept. His old instincts remembered Shirinji Kempo, but this child's body lagged behind. 3 months passed, through servant chores, secret practice, winter cold, and a new year. One winter day, Yulong summoned Ko, needing help with immortal arts homework. The homework script matched the mysterious symbols blocking the Maizen manual's true secrets. Ko copied entries until evening, pretending exhaustion while memorizing the entire dictionary. Yulong called it Immortal Secret Script and handed Ko a dictionary worth a fortune. By evening's end, Yulong received his translation, unaware Ko had stolen something greater. That night, Ko decoded the secret manual and finally understood Mei Gong. The hidden meanings unlocked shrinking earth, the footwork that made movement seem like teleportation. At dawn, he began proper training, wishing only that his stick were a real sword. Ko wanted steel, but a servant boy owning a real sword would attract dangerous attention. The wooden stick still flashed through Maizen forms, his movement finally becoming convincing. Mei Gong moved, slowly like Tai Chi, but she still refused to answer him. After months passed, warmth finally stirred inside him, and Ko nearly jumped with joy. That first warmth became reliable, marking his arrival at the first Chi refining tier. Soon Ko circulated Chi through his body and stepped into the second tier too quickly. Yulong needed years to stand at second tier, making Ko's speed feel impossible. His sword forms now moved like an adult's, but the wooden stick still limited him. Mei Gong carried him to third tier, where Chi strengthened the muscles directly. Li Feng frowned as he handed Ko the claim ticket for a 50 gold sword. 1 year later, Yulong suddenly ordered Ko to collect an expensive custom sword. The city tempted Ko with detours, but he forced himself toward the blacksmith. Inside the forge, Yin Zhaoxi mocked him, saying swords were too early for brats. Ko showed proof, and the blacksmith brought out Yulong's gaudy dragon-decorated sword. Zhaoxi offered testing, with a wry smile, never expecting Ko to actually accept. The sword felt heavier than ideal, but Ko's practice swing cut the air clean. Zhaoxi's expression shifted the moment he saw a child move like a trained swordsman. Ko stepped in and split the straw bundle with a clean diagonal slash. The blade stayed perfect, and Zhaoxi muttered that this was no child's skill. Ko pretended calm, wrapped the sword carefully and left before questions could grow. Back on the street, Ko felt eyes following the expensive bundle in his arms. Lonely lots appeared ahead, but every safer route still held empty stretches. Ko loosened the wrapping cloth, preparing to draw the sword if danger appeared. Then a large man stepped into his path and ordered the brat to stop. The mugger grinned and waved his knife, demanding every valuable thing Ko carried. Ko tested escape, but the blade snapped forward, cutting off every easy route. A decorated carriage stopped behind the mugger, and a young girl stepped down calmly. Ko warned her, but Shunlin claimed a mere mugger could never trouble a future Taoist. The knife flashed toward Shunlin, but her staff cracked down and sent it flying. Victory almost came, until rough ground betrayed Shunlin's elegant steps at the worst moment. Ko moved instantly, grabbing the mugger's wrist before his hand reached Shunlin. With the joint locked, Ko used the man's weight and slammed him into the ground. Shunlin stared flatly, as if asking why he had not fought from the beginning. Ko thanked her, because removing the knife truly had changed the fight. Yulong's name soured. Shunlin's face revealing a connection Ko did not understand. Tang Shunlin introduced herself, then asked Ko not to tell Yulong anything. Back at Qian, Ko kept his promise, so Yulong only saw him as late. They waited together until guards arrived, and Ko handed over the unconscious mugger. Being scolded hurt less when Ko remembered Yulong was only a child. The next practice introduced Ren Xiaodong, a martial artist Ko could not yet defeat. Yulong sensed contempt in Ko's eyes and ordered him into martial practice tomorrow. Xiaodong questioned it, but Yulong insisted Ko should be tested as his partner. Ko chose survival and hid his real skills, becoming Yulong's moving target. Bruises spread quickly as Ko dodged, blocked, and refused to truly fight back. Yulong demanded resistance, then threw a roundhouse kick that Ko turned into theater. Ko rolled hard and played unconscious, letting Yulong dismiss him as useless. Dragging himself away, Ko looked back and promised revenge inside his own mind. After Ko left, Yulong admitted the truth. He hated the defiance in Ko's eyes. Hidden beneath bruises, Ko's secret was cracking, and sharper eyes had begun watching him. Xiaodong noticed more. Ko watched attacks carefully, like someone already used to fighting. 1 full year had passed, and Ko's hidden training had finally sharpened into power. Shrinking earth clicked into place, letting Ko cross distance before the eye could follow. 5th tier chi filled his muscles, giving his small body triple strength. Ko wanted entry, too, but immortal path theory remained a wall he could not climb. Yulong finally reached 3rd tier and prepared for the Sect entrance exam that year. Yulong owned textbooks, but Ko knew his arrogant master would never share them. Gyore Cave waited beside a demon realm where stellar chi rose through dragon veins. Autumn exam day arrived, and Ko followed Yulong as nothing more than luggage carrier. The carriage stopped below the mountain, forcing them onto a steep forest path. The Great Gate stood guarded by Taoist practitioners handling exam registration. 3 kilometers upward, the trees finally opened, revealing Gyore Cave carved into the mountain. Yulong paid 8 gold coins, a ridiculous price for the inner disciple exam. After taking luggage, Yulong walked inside, leaving Ko stranded before the gate. Outer disciples cost only 5 silver coins, and Ko saw his first real opening. Becoming a merchant felt like a cage, so Ko chose the outer disciple exam. The outer exam was held in a warehouse, far from the inner disciple halls. Dong Yimin entered as examiner, beginning with knowledge of the immortal path. The paper crushed him immediately. Half the questions came from knowledge he never had. Ko filled what he could, already treating this year as a trial run. A spiky-haired boy named Zhengu noticed Ko's despair and offered practical encouragement. Chi testing began, with Zhengu barely forcing his circulation into the 2nd tier. Yimin passed him at 2nd tier, and Ko blurted out before he could stop himself. Then Yimin explained, 3rd tier was only required for inner disciples, not outer ones. Ko's balance broke, because his secret 5th tier might turn failure into victory. One by one, the chi tests ended, until Ko finally stood before Yimin. At Yimin's command, Ko generated 1st tier chi almost instantly. 2nd tier followed, smoothly, and Yimin's surprise turned into visible satisfaction. Without a word, Ko raised it to 3rd tier, forcing Yimin to smile. Then Yimin revealed the martial test, hunting fang rabbits at the demon realm's edge. The weakest Yoma was still a fang beast large enough to kill careless disciples. Ko noticed immediately that passing meant fighting a Yoma without his own weapon. Zengu challenged the change, and Yimin explained last year's death had forced harsher standards. The armory looked more like a shed, filled with worn blades and battered tools. Ku selected a rusty one-handed sword, narrow and dull but familiar enough. Other candidates armed themselves too. Zengu chose a spear while fear spread quietly. Yimin led them, north of Mount Gyore, toward the demon realm's outer trees. At the forest, Yimin closed his eyes and used chi to search. Under one tree, a fang rabbit slept, and Zengu was ordered to go first. The beast woke, bared its fangs, and lunged with nothing rabbit-like left. Zengu struck first, then battered the fallen Yoma until he could finish it safely. Zengu passed cleanly, and the examiner moved the group deeper along the forest edge. The next examinee froze before the fangs, and Yimin had to save her. Another girl endured the fear and crushed her fang rabbit down with a mace. 3 had passed, and 3 had failed when Yimin finally signaled Ko forward. Ko's first Yoma battle began with tension, but he had already studied its movements. The fang rabbit leaped wide-mouthed, but Mason footwork carried Ko aside. He spun once and dropped the dull sword straight onto the Yoma's neck. One strike ended, it leaving Zengu muttering and Yimin staring in open surprise. In the grading room, Yimin admitted Ko's talent but pointed to his weak score. Yimin praised him, but warned that the written score could still decide everything. Zuhan laughed it off, saying outer disciples only needed obedience, not brilliance. They called him dim, not knowing the late-blooming child had already memorized secret manuals. Yimin returned with the results, and Ko braced himself for failure. Against his fears, Ko passed, and joy rose before he could hide it. His written score was weak, but Yimin judged Ko could learn after entering. The new disciples learned Wallside Hall would house them beside the sect wall. Ko asked Yimin whether the inner disciple exam had ended, thinking of Yulong. A wooden proof of admission entered Ko's hands like a new life pass. Half a koku. Later, Yulong emerged smiling, clearly accepted as an inner disciple. Yulong tossed luggage back at him, and Ko swallowed a sigh like a servant. Back at Xi'an, Yulong reported success, and Xiao only saw business connections. Ku chose the perfect moment and asked what would happen to him now. Xiao called it a roadside death dream, while Yulong watched Ko with cold eyes. Xiao dismissed him as cheap labor, so Ko calmly accepted the chance to quit. Coworkers stared like he was stupid, but Ko hated staying weak even more. The bandit nightmare still burned behind him, pushing Ko away from helplessness. After one night, Ko climbed back toward Gyore Cave on foot. At the gate, his admission board opened the sect path he had chosen. Beyond a broken wall, the land sloped down to an old cliffside hall. A man emerged from Wallside Hall and appraised the new child disciple. Fan Yingji introduced himself and pointed Ko toward the empty rooms on the left. Ko's new room held only a bed, bare walls, and no comfort at all. Outer disciples slept on prickly straw mats, while inner disciples enjoyed proper bedding. Yingji explained chores, water in the morning, freedom afternoon, and self-study upstairs. The second-floor library opened before Ku like a mountain of treasure. Yingji introduced Ko to Jin Xiaotan, the librarian guarding Wallside Hall's books. Xiaotan warned him that books were restricted by Qi refining tier and secret script. Ko demonstrated 5th tier Qi, and the truth leaked from his small body. When Ko said 5th tier, both seniors looked at each other in disbelief. Most outer disciples quit before 3rd tier, making Ko's progress almost absurd. Then Xiaotan revealed the brutal truth. Outer disciples needed 8th tier to rise. 8th tier alone was not enough. Secret script and a thunder bear stood beyond it. Ku recognized the system instantly. Outer disciples were labor, not true successors. Still, Ku wanted strength, and direct elder instruction meant becoming an inner disciple. Morning chores began, with outer disciples hauling spring water to 9 heavy jars. Xiaotan allowed him 6 shelves, leaving only the 7th forbidden for now. They called it strength training with Qi, but Ko doubted the convenient excuse. By noon, Ko skipped lunch and rushed straight back toward the library. The first shelf held the basics that would have saved his written exam. Days disappeared into shelves: chi basics, history, martial arts, weapons, and scrolls. On the sixth shelf, immortal secret script scrolls waited like locked weapons. The martial shelves were overwhelming, filled with fists, swords, spears, axes, and more. Then one scroll from the bottom row stopped Ko's breath cold. Xiaotan approved it, and Ko spread the middle transmission across the table. The answer was not simple training. Beyond 5th tier required immortal elixirs. Using remembered dictionaries, Ko decoded 6th through 10th tier methods piece by piece. Chi prosperity pill needed herbs from the demon realm, where even rabbits killed humans. Xiaotan noticed something wrong. Ko studied secret script without opening a dictionary. Ko lied carefully, claiming he knew only a few characters, nothing more. Xiaotan explained the initial transmission was lost, leaving this scroll incomplete for everyone else. The final transmission existed in the main hall, locked away from outer disciples like Ko. 10 days later, 2 inner disciples visited Wallside Hall with an unusual order. Elder Suan's command was simple: gather Shishura grass for Bansho healing ointment. The outer disciples burst into chatter, while Zengu and Ashin moved toward Ko. Zengu asked quietly whether these missions were normal, but Ko knew this was new. Ashin wanted details, so Ko described yellow flowers, white veins, and roots intact. A quick party formed because Zengu lacked confidence and Ashin knew no seniors. At the armory, Ko borrowed another one-handed sword for the demon realm. Ashin's mace surprised Ko because the cute girl carried something brutally vicious. Zengu carried confidence, with his family's Longstar spear art and a weapon from home. The three descended the far side of Mount Giore toward the demon realm's edge. They stayed westward along the outer edge, refusing to step deeper into danger. Ko spotted yellow flowers, then confirmed the white veins beneath the leaves. Once they knew the plant, the three dug roots carefully and filled their bags. Halfway through gathering, Ko sensed movement ahead and drew his sword first. 2 horned apes emerged from the trees, each larger than Ko and openly hostile. The first ape leaped from above, and Zengu thrust his spear to intercept it. While it swatted Zengu's spear aside, Ko drove steel into its ribs. Ashin rushed in and smashed its skull before Zengu finished the collapsing Yoma. The second ape roared and lunged at Zengu, claws tearing toward his guard. Ko cut shallow across its back, discovering how hard Yoma muscle could be. When claws turned toward Ko, Ashin struck the back of its head. That opening mattered, and Ko ended the fight with a neck slash. After both fell, Zengu complained their meat was terrible, but Ko noticed the fur. Ko suggested skinning them for bedding, and the others understood winter immediately. They worked awkwardly, but managed the hides, already calculating how many mats they needed. For 4 days, the herb mission continued, and the trio kept killing unicorn apes. A leatherworker processed the hides, while Ko ordered 1 extra mat to sell. The finished mats felt dozens of times better than prickly straw beds. Selling the 4th mat paid the craftsman and proved unicorn ape hides had value. Winter was coming, so Ko wanted more than a mat, he wanted a real quilt. 1 month later, unicorn ape hunting ended after each of them earned 9 gold coins. With winter coming, Ko rejected thin bedding and started thinking beyond ordinary quilts. Cotton was expensive, so Ko proposed something stranger: hunting Yoma waterfowl for down. Man-piercing birds were no harmless waterfowl. Their steel-hard beaks could kill people. Ashin warned him that the birds moved in flocks, making direct battle too dangerous. Ko's answer was not strength but behavior. Make the flock charge into a trap. The net needed to swallow 20 giant birds, so preparation became the real battle. 5 days later, they carried the heavy net toward West Edge Lake. Near the shore, they hid the trap where forest shadows touched the lake. A balancing scarecrow became the bait, built to wobble but never fall. After 2 hours, a flock finally flew near, and Ko gave Zengu the signal. Zengu threw the scarecrow in an arc, landing it right beside the flock. The birds went mad instantly, stabbing and tearing at the fake enemy. Ko pulled the rope, dragging the broken scarecrow toward the hidden net. The flock chased blindly into the entrance, too aggressive to suspect a trap. Ashin pulled hard, and the trap mouth snapped shut around the screaming flock. 2 birds escaped, the net and spotted Ko before he could relax. Ku met the first charge with steel, sidestepping the beak that could pierce flesh. Zengu joined quickly, and together they cut down both escaped birds. Inside the net, the trapped flock screamed until Ko shouted for Ashin to finish them. She used a club instead of blades, protecting the feathers from bloodstains. 18 birds total lay captured, and even Zengu admitted the trap was a miracle. Then came the hardest work, plucking down until their fingers ached. By dim sunset, they climbed back exhausted, carrying feathers, meat, and aching hands. They carried 3 birds back for meat and hung the rest from a tree. Dinner barely helped. Ashin looked half asleep, but still worried about the meat. The next morning, Yinji discovered their half-processed man-piercing bird meat in storage. Yinji offered help, processing the meat, taking only a share as payment. When they returned to the lake, only ropes remained where the meat had hung. They repaired the decoy, hunted again, and finally secured enough down for winter. A craftsman turned the feathers into quilts, and cold winter finally looked survivable.